Welcome to Money Conversations with KJ. KJ is a lifelong entrepreneur who's made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, and found his way back again. If you're looking for a sterile how-to, you're in the wrong place. KJ and his guests will walk you through real-life situations told by the people who live them, and they are as messy as they are inspiring. Each episode will offer lessons learned, advice on how to replicate successes and avoid pitfalls, and a new perspective to power your financial literacy. Far from a one-size-fits-all, this podcast can help you build a roadmap to your personal promised land. Milk and honey for some, whiskey and steak for others, and remind you that you're not alone on this journey.
Well, hello everybody and welcome back. Welcome back to Money Conversations with KJ. I'm your host KJ. Today I have a guest that we've been talking about doing this for a little while, and I finally got him in the studio, Mr. Doug Liebig. Doug, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon.
I think today we're going to get a lot of good value. Doug's an entrepreneur. He's done a lot of great things in his life, and we've had many money conversations, and I think there are going to be some good takeaways for some of you guys out there that are either entrepreneurs now or maybe you want to be an entrepreneur. Doug, I think, is going to have some good money lessons as we go through this conversation. So let's start off, Doug, with I always like to start off with all my guests. How old do you think you were thinking way back when you learned what money was for, that we were trading it to get stuff?
I would have to say that my realization of what money was worth actually was probably when I started having kids.
So all right, well, let's talk about before the kids then. So how did you treat money before that?
I treated money like it was never going to go away. I'd spend it. I'd maybe save it sometimes. I'd go out and buy, and I knew you could get a loan. And, if I needed a vehicle, I'd go get a loan and so on and so forth.
Well, let's share with the audience how old were you when mom and dad sat you down and taught you any kind of money lessons?
Never. Nope.
And again, my audience, the regular listeners out there, you guys know this because you've heard them all before. This is very normal.
Yeah.
It's a lot more normal than people realize. And I always say, listen, let's not blame mom and dad. Listen, because mom and dad can't teach what mom and dad don't know, right?
Right.
And oftentimes talking about money has been in our generation was a little taboo, right?
Yeah.
And so how old were you when you think you started to learn your first money lessons? And what were your first money lessons?
Well, I would say I was in the Marine Corp from the time I was 17 years old to the time I was 24. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I wanted to go to school, and I really had no idea how to do it. So in the meantime, what I was doing is I was driving trucks, and I was making money driving trucks, but I realized that that's not what I wanted to do. A few gnarly little runs, and I was done with that. And so I basically went in and talked to the boss, the trucking company, and I said, "Listen," I said, "I really appreciate working for you, but I want to go back to school." And the one thing he said to me, which actually still impresses me to this day, was he goes, "You're going to look back 4 years from now, and you're going to say, God, I could have gone back to school." And not saying that school is the end-all means for making money, but it's something I wanted to do. So then I had to figure out how to do it, how to fund it, and all that other good stuff. So that's what I did. I went to school for civil engineering, and while I was in school, I was making a truck payment, making insurance payment, paying my food, paying my rent, and there was never any month left at the end of the money. And I was okay with that because I was getting something out of it, but I was able to make my bills. And then as time goes on, after I got out of school, I got a job with a consulting company, and again, there was never any month left at the end of the money,
Yeah. It's a very typical story out there that we hear. Kids deciding to go to school, first not going to school, then maybe I better go to school, right? And then they go back and they'll go get whatever type of degree and get out there and oftentimes still not do what they go to school for, right? But you did learn a lot of good stuff in school, and I think going to school probably teaches some good self-discipline, right?
That's the main thing that it did teach me is I kind of have an analytical mind, and I'm able to think and discern. And so I think that's maybe what college does for you, and gives you the capability of using some reasoning, maybe some common sense. So that's really what led to where I'm at today, is because I keep going back on what I learned. Kind of the if this then that kind of theories and principles that I learned, say designing a pumping system, for example, when I got out of school. I had to figure out how to design caustic and acid pumping systems for a brewery. And in school they teach you, how to do your calculations. It's all pretty much very little theory and a lot of application. So my background is actually application. So when it comes to money, the application, and to be honest with you, I didn't really understand how money works until just a few years ago. I didn't really understand that we live in a debt society, but looking back on it, that's what I worked within without even thinking about it.
Right. And again, back to where, if mom and dad aren't teaching us any money lessons, and then we're left up to left all on our shoulders of going out there and learning this money game, right? And if you're telling me you just learned it, let's say in the last less than 10 years, right? Because you're up here, if you don't mind sharing your age with the folks.
57.
57, right? So you're talking mid-40s until you kind of figured it out, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're living like most Americans or people around the world, which is you're trading time for money.
Yep.
Or value for money. People will make money, right? And not understanding that, like I teach people, once you learn to have money make money, that's when you start to really stack money.
Yeah.
And I know you and I have talked about that because you play in the stock market now, right? And so imagine if you would have learned that lesson in your early 20s.
Oh, boy.
Well,
right? I think about it, because some of the stuff that I'm doing now, if I would have applied what I've learned now just on the stock market and how money works, I probably would have been retired by now.
Right. And so that's why it's so important. I love having this podcast that we do and talking to people about money, because in your life, early in your career, in your life, can you remember, did you ever have like a mentor sit you down? And sometimes there's life mentors, money mentors, coaches if you played sports, that kind of thing. Did you have any mentors?
Not really. I had a guy that told me how I screwed everything up, but
but sometimes knowing that can help you, right?
And that's exactly what it did. In 2008, 2009, North Las Vegas went broke, and I had a job with 6 guys on that project, and my payroll was $100,000 a month, and I was trying to figure out where to get that money from. So this guy comes along through referrals, and I started sitting down talking with him. First thing he did was he looked through my shop. I had probably close to $500,000 worth of equipment in the shop, and we had a lot of contracts with ready mix suppliers, and we had some jobs going on. And that was all kind of before the big crash, before the 2008, 2009. And I know he knew something, but he didn't tell me anything. You know what I mean? He didn't sit down and say, you need to downsize, there's a crash coming, and whatever. And so he looks through there and he goes, "What'd you get such a big place for?" And I said, "Well, because that was the cheapest place that I could find at the time, and
right.
And it still could house all the equipment that I had." And he goes, "Well, that was stupid." Okay. Ended up being that, we did actually do pretty well. I did about $4.8 million a year with that company. Obviously there's a lot of overhead with it and a lot of payroll and all that other stuff. But the big thing is I had to shut down because North Las Vegas ran out of money, and I couldn't figure out how to pay my guys. I'd either have to pay my guys and not pay the IRS, or pay the IRS and lose my guys, lose my job, and then get a lawsuit from the city of North Las Vegas.
Right.
So it was like juggling eggs with that one. And what ended up happening is I ended up paying my guys, stayed on, sold the business. The IRS came after me, and And then I went back down to absolutely zero. The only thing I was able to keep out of that whole thing, I had 4 homes and plus my single family residential that I owned, my primary. And the only thing I was able to keep out of that whole thing was my 2005 Dodge pickup, and they made me pay $10,000 for that too.
Wow. So again, I always say, with every failure, as long as we learn, and I'm like, listen, same thing. 08 crashed. I was built a nice Beetle $3 million spec home, lost it. And I just go, well, let's look back. What can we learn on our mistakes? And in that particular situation, these things weren't not of our fault, right? No. These are circumstances that were created by other people we know now. I look at it as we were all victims, right? Because we were doing the right things. But even then, you can look back and tell yourself, well, if I'd have done this or if I'd have done that, maybe it wouldn't have been as bad or something to that effect, right?
Yeah.
Because I like to share with people fail and they get really down on themselves. And I'm like, don't do that.
No, that's a learning experience. It's not
100%. Let's just learn whatever that failure may have been. As long as you've learned something, it's not a true failure. It's only a true failure if you didn't look back and learn something.
Right.
If you just gave up and like, I don't know, I failed. I don't even know why. Like, go find out. Learn the lesson.
Yeah, exactly.
Then it was an expensive lesson, but at least it's a lesson. You know what I mean? Like you were talking a minute ago, if you knew what you know now back in your 20s, you'd be a totally different person financially.
Yeah.
So...
But would that change? The thing is would that change you going forward, learning the lessons that you needed to learn going forward? So.
We're on this journey of life.
Absolutely.
And we're always learning. You and I have talked about that. Where I think the older we get, the more we want to learn. Right? And when you're real young, you're like, I'm tired of school. I need to go just make money or whatever.
Yeah.
But where do you think your money habits came? Did your money habits come from mom and dad? The way you treat money?
No. In fact, my mom told me, she says, my mom encouraged me to get a credit card. And she says, and she told me, she said, when you need to use it, mm-hmm. Don't overuse it, but use it when you need to use it. And it's kind of a lifeline for you, whatever.
Right.
And, God bless her. She was doing what she knew to do. My dad, was taking care of 2 families at that time. And so they were always on the short end of money as well. And
no money lessons at all from them?
No.
I mean, mom said get a credit card and just said use it responsibly, basically, which she was sharing with you, which is, that's a good lesson in itself. I talk about that. I mean, credit card debt is the 3rd highest debt in the country because people just don't use them responsibly, right? I hear that term out there. Credit cards are bad. You've heard that before. And I say, listen, credit cards aren't bad. There's just a piece of plastic, right? Yeah. So how can a credit card be bad? It's how you use them and the people who use them irresponsibly where the credit card may get a bad rap. But I really think credit cards are great in today's world because there's so much fraud out there.
Absolutely.
And anytime we can use OPM, other people's money, which is what a credit card is, you're safer from somebody attacking and taking your money, whether it's you're a big guy, no one's taking physically money from you. But if they, if your debit card got hacked and they wiped out your account, you're kind of screwed. Your bank's going to be like, hey, we can't help you.
Hey, that happened. And that happened when I had my business, my engineering company.
Yeah. So
$100,000 went missing.
Yeah. And so when we use credit cards, that's not our money. If that gets stolen, it's on them and they're insured for that stuff.
Yeah.
So I recommend it, but there's people out there like a Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman who don't recommend credit cards. And I go, look, just use them responsibly and you're going to be fine. Right?
Yeah.
If you get a pickle, it's on it's on you. You did that. So you went and got that engineering school, opened that company, did pretty well. Time in history, 08, where a lot of people, took a bath on there and then recouped.
Yep.
When you got back into the swing of things, what was your perspective on money at that point? Like, okay, this is like my second chance to do it again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was.
And what did you think when you're like, did you have like major shifts in your money mindset?
Yep.
Like, what were they?
Well, what I mentioned earlier, the guy said I was stupid for doing what I did.
Right.
So I always went as feasible and economic as I could. And everything that I did, I looked at it not for the show, not for what we could have, but what we could afford. And so I just went with everything. I could be living in a 2,000 square foot house and have $10 million and I'd still be living in a 2,000 square foot house. There'd be no reason for me to go anywhere else. And so, really, the turning point was, or the way I treated money after that was that there's an old saying, easy come, easy go.
Right.
And I think the big thing is I have good work ethic. And I was taught that. My dad taught me that from the time I could ride a bicycle and deliver papers. He told me to go get a job, and I had to save up my first route, and I bought a bike. And then from then on, I was like 13 years old. I've always worked. And now what I'm trying to do is realize the value of money and what money has. And that has changed a lot in our society here in the very near recent past,
Right.
And so what I look at now is I look at my big thing is I buy silver, and I started buying silver in 2008. I had a guy tell me one time, he said, even if you can only afford 1 ounce of silver, go down and buy it. He says that's 1 ounce that is going to be worth $20, whether the dollar's worth $1 or it's worth a penny.
Right.
He said the silver is stability. So I started doing that in 2008, and I just, whenever I had a little extra, I'd buy silver. And
well, you mentioned how you learned your work ethic from Dad, and I was just watching a video the other day about our generation. Right, we're boomers, and most boomers have really good work ethic, right? And I saw this video the other day of a millennial who felt really entitled. She felt that her mom at 16 years old should buy her a Mercedes G-Wagon. It's a $200,000 vehicle.
Yeah.
And Mom's like, well, I'll buy you a C-Class. And this girl was like, I think she was on Dr. Phil, like going crazy. Like, no way, I can't drive a C-Class. You got to get me. I deserve the G, right? The G-Wagon. And Dr. Phil's going nuts. He's like, are you kidding me? I mean, and I look at that and I'm like, whose fault is this? Mm-hmm. This is the parent. Yep. This is the mom. This is who you raised, a very entitled, spoiled young child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But this is what's a lot of the society out there. And today, I think millennials who grew up more on the internet and technology than you and I did, and social media, and they're seeing and they're wanting to mimic, and the Kardashians and all these other people who just spend ridiculous amounts of money and they feel entitled about it, right? I think that could be a problem. And then I also look back at some of these, when you look at social media and you see there's so much money being made online by these young kids. Right. When I say young kids, they're in their 20s, right?
Sure.
Making like 50, 100 grand a month.
Yeah.
Like a lot of money, but they don't have any money lessons. And I just fear that they're going to be like the athletes who developed amazing skills, who reached the pro level of whatever sport, pick a sport, doesn't matter, who make a ridiculous amount of money, and then they're broke when they're done.
Yeah, exactly.
Because no one taught them about money.
Yeah.
But these kids, to me, it's a parallel story, right? These kids who mom and dad spoil and give them these things, they don't have what you described, and you described it like it was just so nonchalant. Well, my dad taught me good work ethic, and you just kept on with your words, your conversation. I'm like, wait a minute, we got to get back on that, because I think there's the problem in America. We're not teaching our kids a really good work ethic.
Yeah.
Like, money does not fall off into your lap. We got to go, do things for it.
Got to work for it.
We got to work for it. Yeah. But now I like to teach, you've got to work for money, but now it's next level. It's not just, okay, I made money, let me go buy what I want. Now, if you can learn the mindset of make money, that's when you're going to start to have money.
Yeah. That's when you reap the benefits of your work with money, making money for itself. And I'm kind of in that phase right now, even at 57 years old. I've been in that phase now for about probably like 4 or 5 years, and I've been learning how to make the money work for itself. And
now I know your son came to one of my workshops a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And so if you're confessing about, you learned it only like 10 years ago.
Right.
So once you started learning it, were you sharing these learning lessons with your kids?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
In fact, they all wanted to go to college, and I'm like, fine, do whatever you want to do. You go into college. Okay, so first of all, I said, if you go to work, you're on your own, and you're going to make your own payments and live your own life, and that we're done. And then two, if you go in the military, well, you're taken care of, and you can make a life for yourself there. 3, if you want to go to college, you're going to have to pay for it, and I'll let you live here. How's that sound? And they all kind of looked at me with like
like you were being hard.
Yeah, but the thing I've learned is that unless you, and having kids, too, it kind of teaches you. Some people can see it or maybe not see it, but when you give kids something, they expect it. And then just like you're talking about with the G-Wagon,
right?
We never gave our kids anything. They always had to work for it somehow or another. I mean,
we had to earn it.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like going out and chopping up a cord of wood, or something like that. But there was things that they had to do to earn it, and they had to work for it. And they've all actually paid for their own college. And my daughter's got 1 year left. My oldest son's got 2 years left. He's going to SUU, and my middle son, Alex, came to your workshop. He very smart guy with his money. I got to say that. And the other 2 are doing good too. He was always very, very tight with his money, and he's doing very well. He's going to get his master's. They're paying for his college. They're sending him to get his master's. He's working for Hill Air Force Base on a fighter program. And he's a computer science guy. And so
if we think about it, I mean, your kids, I'm just picturing how they obviously saw dad work real hard the last 20 whatever years, right? Yep. And I think our kids want to emulate and do what we do. And if we're hardworking people, they're likely to be hardworking people.
That's right.
Unless we spoil the crap out of them. And you didn't do that with your kids. I didn't do that with mine. I just taught them how to go make money, right? And build that good work ethic.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And that's only the beginning of the game, though, right? We can go learn whatever you want to learn. And you're going to college. College is all about getting a JOB.
Yeah.
And the JOB, all you're doing is trading time for money. Right? You may be trading more value of your time because you've learned something and you make more than the average person on the street. But even then, that's just the beginning of the game.
Yep.
Now it's like, what do I do with this money? And the mindset shift that I have all these conversations with people is, it's not about how much can I make and what can I go buy now.
Yeah.
That's the wrong mindset, right?
Right.
That's why the lesson in my program, the first chapter, is mindset. We really have to learn how to think and act different with our time and money in order to grow money to when you reach our age. Right. Like, money's not an issue. We've got the money and we get to live life on our terms, whether it's a retirement, if you want to retire, because I don't want to retire.
I don't either.
Right? I may, but to be able to have the options of what you want to do with your time is a very good feeling.
Absolutely.
It's a really good feeling, right?
My wife and I were just talking about that a couple of days ago. It's like, what's going to be nice is we can just take a couple of weeks and don't have to worry about where the money's coming from to make the bills for that 2 weeks that we're off. Because we have a business and and it's just me. And so, we'll have everything set up to where we can go do what we want to do, come back, and then start up again, start up I think
when we can actually control our time, that's when you really enjoy life. My wife and I just got back yesterday, a couple of days ago. I played a round of golf really early in the morning, and I came home. It was like, I was done by 9:30, and I told her, I says, you know what? It's bloody hot out here. I go, let's just jump in the car. Let's go to San Diego for a couple of days, by the beach, hang out, cool down for a couple of days, and then we'll come back for the weekend.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, let's go. Yeah. Right? I knew I didn't have anything pressing, but to be able to have that option, I didn't have to ask anybody. I don't have to worry, do I have enough money to go down there for a few days or whatever. Those are really good feelings of living life on terms like that, right?
Exactly.
I'm not sitting on millions of dollars or anything, but, it's not a lot of money to go spend a few days down at the beach. No. But having the mindset, understanding while I was gone, my money was working for me.
Yeah, and it's more or less financial freedom. And like you said, you don't have to have millions of dollars in the bank to have financial freedom. You just have enough to where you can do what you want to do.
Well,
then also making that money work for you so you don't have to worry about it.
Well, everybody, can you remember at what age were you when you started actually thinking about retirement? How old do you think you were when because you typically 20 whatevers, they're like retirement. I'm 23 or 4. I'm worrying about retirement right now, which is the wrong mindset. But how old do you think you were when you thought, man, I got to start thinking about doing something with my money for some sort of retirement?
Well, with me, it was a little different because I got out of the Marine Corps and my dad had a stroke. Right after he retired, he had a stroke, and I saw what he went through in retirement. And later on in life, I learned that you don't necessarily, if you retire. It's like I've always told my kids, when you quit, you fail. When you fail, you die. And so that's my whole thing. And I from about 24 on, I realized I wasn't going to retire.
You weren't striving for retirement.
No,
like a lot of folks do. They strive for, like, I'm going to go do my 20 or 30 years with XYZ company, whatever it is, and then I'm done. I don't want to work anymore.
No, because that's not what life is. For me, that's not what life is about, because I've got an uncle that's 94 years old, and he's still doing charcoal drawings. And he's still writing poetry, and he's up in the woods, working in the woods every day. My grandfather was the same way. He was 92.
I've got an 88-year-old uncle, same thing. I think if we keep ourselves busy mentally,
yes, exactly,
physically enough to keep your body right, you can't lay around because you'll definitely die if you don't keep yourself in motion.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I don't like the word retirement. I try to teach people, don't strive to retire. Strive to reach financial independence and then financial freedom after that. You'll live a much more fruitful life on your terms.
It's a big difference. Because
retirement, it seems like it's the end.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is. And if you have that mindset, then you're coming to the end.
And retirement has always been based on, it's not written anywhere, but it's kind of known because the government gives you your Social Security at a certain age, and people tie those two things together, and they think that retirement's an age, and that's why a 20-whatever-year-old will, like, retirement, I'm not even going to think about that. That's not till I'm 65. I'm like, well, one, you got it wrong, because retirement is not an age.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
If retirement was an age, people like Mark Zuckerberg, when he created Facebook and made hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in his 20s, right? He could have said, hey, I got all the money, I'm retiring. And
then you could look at Warren Buffett too.
Him too, right? Yeah. But those guys are like, they follow their passions, they love what they do. They're like, I'm retiring. I want to keep playing the game.
Yeah.
And that's why I call it the game, right?
Exactly.
We're all playing a game.
Exactly.
And the only difference is you either know the rules to the game or you don't know the rules.
Yep.
And I teach, like, any game that it's like any game we learn, checkers, Monopoly, whatever. If you didn't know the rules of that game, you couldn't win the game because you don't know the rules.
Right. Exactly.
And so that's why financial literacy is so important. That's teaching you the rules of the game.
Yes.
Because you're playing the game whether you realize it or not. Like when you were going through your 20s and 30s and you didn't really start to think about money until your 40s, you're like, you were playing the game.
Oh yeah, without really.
If you start when you're making money, you're playing the game.
Yeah,
you're in the game. You're playing.
And really, you have to understand it. Well, the big thing for me was, when we were kids, we went through the stagflation thing with Carter, and there was red days and green days at the pump,
right.
Odd and even, all that stuff, and there was no money. And then later on in life, you find out, well, there really was money and there really was oil. They were just cutting us off.
Yes.
And so once you realize that, kind of what we're going through right now. And I think once you get rid of the fear of money and being afraid of what it can or can't do and realizing what it is, then I think your life is, regardless of what the government has to say, your life is going to be okay.
God, that's such a great lesson. God, I hope you guys say that again. You got to tell these folks that again. That is a total mindset.
It is.
It's a 100% mindset, how we're going to react with money. And people, I read a statistic. It's like 56% of people, money makes them have high anxiety. They get very anxious about it, right? It freaks people out, especially when you don't have it, right?
Right.
And so if you don't think about money that way and you think about it in the terms you just put, you shouldn't have anxiety about it.
No.
You know what I mean?
I haven't had anxiety about it since probably after, I lost all the houses and everything, and I figured, well, here we go. And I just kept doing. I put that work ethic into place, and I worked as many as 7 days a week, 6 days a week to get back on top of things. And we eventually got back up on top, and I had extra money to.
And that's what it takes, though, right? Like, you knew, right, when you went back to square one, like, all right, I'm going to have to double down, work a lot harder to catch back up.
Yeah.
Hence the work ethic, right? And I think in today's world that people will tend to give up. But let me ask you this, because one of the lessons that I teach is goal setting, right? So having goals, because having goals is like a roadmap to where we're going.
Right.
And just like if you or I wanted to jump in the car and drive to, Dallas, Texas or whatever, we'd either plug it in our GPS and follow the blue line on the GPS, or we pull out a map. But that's like how a goal is, right? We got to set up how those things. So did you find yourself, interesting in your case, because starting going to square one, having to build back up, did you have like clear written goals written down that you wanted to achieve?
Not necessarily. I didn't have clear, concise goals, but I knew the overall plan, and I knew where I needed to get to, and I'd have conversations of where we were at and where we were going with my wife, and then she'd throw things out there. Well, maybe we should be doing this, and so then you sit there and think about it. It's like, okay, yeah, let's try that.
Well, I talk about that because writing, and I teach all the students this, man, write your goals down, because now your goals can change and there's nothing wrong with that. You just basically described that, right? You're going along your journey the second time around, knowing where you wanted to be and figuring out how to get there along the way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But Harvard studies have shown that by having clear written goals, we're going to get there a lot faster and smoother.
Yeah. Yeah.
And can we, I don't know what's the word I want to use. Can we just kind of zig when we need to zag kind of thing, right? Where, okay, my goal was this and I laid it out over the next 12 months and you made a couple of adjustments because of circumstances. Absolutely, that's fine.
Yeah.
But writing them down is what I try to get people to understand. It's like driving a car blindfolded. God knows we wouldn't do that. And every time we get in our vehicles, every single time we get in our vehicles, there's a destination. We know where we're going.
Yeah.
Nobody gets in the car and just drives around the circles or whatever, right?
No.
Like, you got in your car, you knew you were coming here to do the podcast, right? Like, so if we treat our lives that way, if we know where we're going, in every step we do, especially with our money, we're likely to get there.
Yep.
Then if we don't, write these things down. But let's switch gears a little bit for the folks, because you're an entrepreneur, right? Doug owns his own company, and Doug's a home inspector. You guys all know I'm in real estate. I call Doug all the time, come inspect one of my homes, right? That I'm getting ready to buy or I just bought, whatever. And you've learned now the lesson of having employees. And what it takes. And I think you and I have talked about this. I'm in real estate. I have no employees, and I've had them in the past, and I never want an employee again.
Yeah.
I rather make my money make money. That's my employee, my money.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
What's your mindset around that?
Pretty much the same. I have people call me all the time that I've done inspections for, and they say, "Oh, my son or my cousin or so and so wants to be a home inspector. Can they tell you?" And I said, most of the time I say no. And in fact, every time I've said no. But I've had a couple guys working for me that I did. The last one, I did trust him, and he worked for me in the engineering side of things too, and just a great guy. But having 18 guys on the payroll, there's always, you're kind of a fireman unless you hire more employees to take care of the fires.
Exactly. You're always putting out fires.
Yep. And so I guess the thing that I've learned is that, so for me, entrepreneurship came when so we bought our first house in, I think, 96. And then I got a call from the guy who sold it to me, and he says, "Hey, I can get you $225,000 this weekend." And it was like 4 years later, and I'm like, what? I paid $98,000 for it,
Right.
And I'm like, what? No way. And at the time I was working for a consulting company. I think I was working down on the monorail. And I'm like, $225,000. Oh, that's a lot of money, And so then we turned around and we bought this dump of a house. And I mean, the house was nice, the one that we lived in. He sold it to us when we moved into it. And then we go and buy this dump. And then we had a lot of work to do to it. And so I got that. I turned that around, and I turned that around for another, I think I turned it around for $200. We bought it for $125 and turned it around for $200. And so at that point, I wasn't an entrepreneur yet. I hadn't started a company. I hadn't done anything. I was still working for a contractor on the monorail. And I thought, you know what? I'm gonna try starting a business. I want to start a business. And when I was out at Lake Mead, I was working on the ozone treatment facility out at Lake Mead, and this old guy says, you need to get your home inspection license. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Right.
And I really disregarded it for a while. And then once I sold that second home, I'm like, I know construction. And so jumping off into a business or entrepreneurship, you can know everything that you think you know about the business until you get to the other side of it. Okay, so you know everything about a home. You can go in and do an inspection on a home and know all the phases of construction, but the business side of it, that's a whole different ball game, and that was a learning curve for me. But that opened up doors, and I never went back from about 2001. I guess about 2001 on. I really haven't worked for anybody.
I think that you put it perfectly, because I've taught that lesson too about people who want to, be an entrepreneur and be their own boss. And if you go down the route, whether you have employees or not, yeah, you could know the business that you want to be in. If you're a plumber, a landscaper, whatever you want to be, and you're great at that. But if you don't know business, man, you're going to get yourself in a pickle really quick.
Yes,
right?
you will.
There's a thing out there called 941 taxes, which is most of the time why small businesses fail, because they don't pay them.
Yeah.
Because they figure, well, I'll catch up. I need the money to pay payroll, or I got to buy another piece of equipment, or whatever the case may be that they do with the money. And so I share with people that if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you want to own whatever kind of business, first understand you're not an employee. It's 24/7, 365. Until you're ready for your mind to wrap around that, then don't even start a business, because you'll fail.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And it takes years of building a business where you can unplug yourself and let the business be on its own. And that's definitely the direction you want to go if you become that type of business owner. But yeah, you couldn't be so right spot on about learning business, not the trade that your business is about,
right,
but business itself. Your banking is really important, your taxes, marketing. You're like, I'm a plumber, I don't know anything about marketing, right? No, marketing is business.
It's huge.
It costs money and it's expensive.
I had so many guys that were actually really good. They were actually really good tradesmen. Most of them carpenters, some electricians, and I had my home inspection license when I was doing some of the third party work that I was doing. And I talked to them every once in a while, and like, yeah, I need to get my home inspection license. And I said, yeah, go for it. I better. But it's. You have to know how to talk to people. You have to know how to get the business. You have to know how to maintain the business with the jurisdictions that you're working in, and
licensing, everything that goes with it.
Everything, yeah.
Well, reflecting now at 57, what would you tell your 21-year-old self?
Probably the same thing that I'm telling my
your 21-year-old,
21 and 24-year-old. Yeah. I would say, be smart with your money. I've actually told them how the money works. And now that I know, learn how the money works, learn that we're in a debt society. most people that are making millions of dollars are millions of dollars in debt because they leverage, and then they use that leverage to gain tax credits on real estate properties, and so if nothing else, just learn how money works, and learn how money will work for itself and work for you. And basically, there's all sorts of information. We're living in the day and age of social media, the internet. And back when we were doing it, I mean, the web wasn't even out really.
No.
In 2000, and so it was more. You had to talk to people, and if people were willing to give you information or reading books,
Well, so let's talk about. I mean, what type of things did you do to educate yourself when you were? I mean, because you had to learn as you go, right?
Yeah.
And so you were self-taught.
Yeah.
Meaning you were reading books.
Yes.
Give me the top 3 books that the people out there listening who are thinking about either they're early entrepreneurs in the game or want to be. What would you recommend? What's a couple of good books?
Well, I know it's I did read The Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Great book.
And I know it's been, used over and over again. There's really no bad theories in there. And actually, they're very good theories. And there's Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich is a great book.
Yeah.
That's a mindset book.
It is.
When I read it, that's more of a mind. But again, I think until you get your mindset correct with money, you're going to struggle.
Yes.
I don't care how smart you are. I don't care if you got a whatever job you're making 6 figures, whatever.
Yeah.
Until your mindset is right with money, you're never really going to have it. And you were talking about the debt society we live in, and I teach that there's 2 kinds of debt, right? There's good debt and bad debt, and you describe good debt, leverage debt that makes money, right? When a lot of these people, and not that I bag on Dave Ramsey, I think he's fantastic, but Dave Ramsey, his teachings are for W-2 earner type people. Right?
Yeah.
These are people with jobs. Dave Ramsey's, most of his teachings don't really work in the entrepreneurial world, right? Because entrepreneurs must leverage.
Yeah.
We must. We must leverage time, money, and people to grow your businesses. So it's okay once you recognize and understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. And it's real simple. Leverage debt that makes you money is good debt. You're fine, right?
Right.
Buying a house is good debt.
Right.
Right. Buying a house today a car today because they're $50,000 to $100,000. You're not gonna. I don't recommend to pay cash for $100,000 car.
No.
Right, because make your payments. You can make that money. You can make enough money to make those payments.
Yeah.
If you had the $100K.
Yes.
Instead of going down there and just writing a check, don't do that. If you had multi-million dollars, yes. Pay cash for your $100,000 car because you can afford it.
Yeah. Same thing with your house.
Same thing, right? And bad debt is consumer debt, things that don't make you money. This is where people get in trouble. This is why credit card debt is so high. They get these credit cards, which is not your money. You just got access to it because you did well and they gave you some credit, right?
Yeah.
And now they're out buying dinners and shoes and shopping and crap that don't make you money that you can't pay off at the end of the month.
Right. Exactly.
Bad debt, guys. You do not want to get in that debt.
The other thing that I would tell myself that saving money is not good.
No.
And the reason why is because in the inflation, the Fed is required to keep unemployment low, and then also keep the inflation down to 2%. Right now we're way beyond that.
We're 40-year high,
and unemployment is high too. So when you're saving money, your inflation is going at.
It's eating it up.
Yeah, it's eating it up, and it doesn't make up for that money that you're losing.
I want to step one step further than that. Like, I want to make sure that people understand, like, when we're telling you don't save money, that doesn't mean when you cash your check, make sure you spend it all. I say save money for a purpose. Most people save money just to save money. That's
true.
old school, right?
That's true.
I'm going to just stick it in the bank. I don't know why yet, but something's going to come up. I mean, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
We're saving money for a purpose, whether it's like I want to buy my house or my car is probably good for another 2 or 3 years. All right, save money for that, right? Kids' college, or I want to invest in XYZ. So we have to learn how not to commingle our money. I think this is where a lot of people get in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? Because let's say you only have one savings account type of thing, but you're saving for 4 or 5 different things that you're saving for, and it all goes in the same bucket, you're likely not to get but 1 or 2 of those things.
Right.
Now, if you go ahead and open 4, if you have 5, let's say you have 5 things you're striving to purchase or that you're saving for, and they're different. I call them buckets, and you're putting that in there every paycheck, right?
Right.
$10 to this one, $20 to that one, $5 to this one, until you get whatever it is that you're saving for. That's okay, because most people just work for certain dollars every week or every other week when they get paid.
Use what they need it for.
Save for a purpose, track it, follow it,
right,
is a good idea. Saving, not knowing what you're saving for, bad idea.
Right. And I guess my point was instead of having a savings account, find something. Well, my thing was silver.
Right.
And so when I had my savings account, I had silver as my savings account. Okay. And now I built up enough in that savings account to where it's, it'll be lucrative at some point, but It's got plenty in there to where if the dollar does go away.
So that's investing, right? So we're all going to invest, and we're going to park money in so many different vehicles that we can park our money in. Right. And so you chose that vehicle to park money as your savings, which is great. Now, I also teach out there to get yourself financially secure, which means, guys, whatever your monthly bills are, multiply times 6, that needs to be in an account that you can access tomorrow if need be, right? When COVID hit and all these people got sent home, most of them freaked out and panicked because they were living, paycheck to paycheck. Right? Over 50% of the people in this country live paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
They freaked out.
Yeah.
They're like, holy crap. I mean, I can't go to work and I can't make a paycheck. How am I going to feed my family? Now, the people who handled their money correctly were financially secure, which means 6 months of your monthly, bills put away. Yeah. You didn't panic.
No.
You're like, okay, all right, we got 6 months. We don't know how long this is going to last. We got to start thinking of a plan B. Meanwhile, I'm paying my mortgage / rent. Yeah. I can put food on the table, make my car payment. I'm all right. Yeah. I'm not freaking out.
Yeah. And in the meantime, it's not like the whole world, there was no jobs,
Right.
And so you just find something else to do. And like I told my wife, I said, well, they quit selling houses, I'll maybe try and sell cars. And if I don't do that, then I'll go find something else to do,
Right.
And so there's always something to do for
There's
money.
always something. I think we look back now for those 2 years, the internet exploded with businesses.
Oh, yeah.
People were at home online going, I've got to do something online. And it's great because everybody has in my opinion, everybody has some sort of value that you could give to the world, right?
Yeah.
If we got shut down again, and let's say you're like, well, let me put a program together about inspecting homes, right? And you could sell that program for whatever, $200, $300, $500 a whack.
Right.
That's making money.
Sure.
So you take the value that you have, where people just went home and figured, I'm not clocking in and out, I can't make money. Like, yeah, you can.
Well, it's like a guy told me one time too. He says whether you're making lollipops or popsicles, he says if you can make $1 million doing it,
make them.
Make them.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the entrepreneurship. That's the spirit of entrepreneurship. Take what you got, and try to make money with it.
Well, wow. I think today was awesome. A little more entrepreneur talk than usual, but because you're sitting here with a couple entrepreneurs and we're doing fantastic and living life on our terms. But I think the big takeaway today for a lot of you guys out there listening is same story. Mom and Dad didn't teach Doug, right? Doug had to go figure it out. And Doug didn't figure it out really, truly until he was in his mid-40s, guys. So it's never too late. I always like to teach people it's not too late to learn the money game.
No.
It doesn't matter if you're 25, 45, 55. Let's learn these money lessons. So, Doug, thanks for coming out, man. I think
you're welcome.
Really gave some solid value out there. So, awesome. Hey, guys, when you're out there listening, if you're on YouTube, do me a favor, subscribe to my channel, hit that like button. And for you folks out there on the podcast world, just go ahead and keep following me on the podcast. They're coming out on a regular basis. Typically, every Wednesday morning, I'll put a new one out. So this one will probably be out next Wednesday. Until then, we'll see you guys on the next podcast. Hey everybody, hope you enjoyed that episode. Really enjoyed making all these episodes for you. Remember,
we're just having conversations with people's journey with money and the things they did right with it, the things that did wrong with it, and how did they really come about getting their mindset with money. So every episode's different. We all have a good takeaway from them. So do me a favor, hit the like button, smash the like button, and subscribe to my channel, because every episode that I do is going to be different, as all our journeys are different. So you guys take care, and we'll talk to you next week.